Hello, I'm Nigel Marvin, and this is an exquisite reticulated python. I'm a naturalist and I love herpetology, that's the study of reptiles. And just imagine being given the opportunity to go back in time and meet dinosaurs. I've always wanted to work with animals ever since I've been knee-high to a grasshopper. I was never interested in train sets or toy cars. I had stick insects, used to have races along the washing line, and my first pet was a green lizard. And it led on naturally from that. I could either have been a vet, but that was working with domesticated animals, or become a scientist. I was never any good at statistics or computing, so the next best thing was to become a wildlife filmmaker. And that has just been wonderful for me. I've travelled all around the world and have to pinch myself sometimes. It's like being paid to do my hobby. And now, actually go from behind the camera to in front, I can get my enthusiasm across when I meet the animals. And this is what I love doing, being very close to gorgeous animals like this. Look at the sheen on the coils of this reticulated python. Beautiful iridescence, just like oil on water. And it's when you get close to animals like this and it gives the viewers a chance to experience what it's like to have a constricting snake pretty tight around your neck. And Tim Haynes, he'd seen me working with modern day reptiles, and he rang me up and said, "How do you fancy going back in time to meet dinosaurs?" He was responsible for the wondrous Walking with Dinosaurs. And of course I jumped at that opportunity. I was never really going to meet dinosaurs, but the computer generated kind, it was absolutely fantastic. And now when I watch the finished shows, I'm watching it and I think to myself, I can't remember being that close to a velociraptor. It's so real even for me that it actually transports me back 100 million years. I really feel when I see the shows that I'm there back in time with dinosaurs. I've had many adventures in my career meeting gorgeous animals like this. This is a lovely Asian water dragon. And I really didn't think I'd be in any danger at all from a computer-generated dinosaur, but we did have some problems, and this is a really interesting behind-the-scenes story. I was being chased by velociraptors, and I have to climb up this tree, and as I climbed up, I put my finger under a vine. I trod on the vine, and because of that pressure, it actually pulled my fingernail clean from the socket, so it was bleeding really badly. And from that point on, to protect it from infection, I had to have a bandage on my finger. And if you watch the film, it's in The Giant Claw, I have an interaction with a dinosaur, a Mononychus. It's one of the ancestors of the birds. And I say, "Oh, look, it's bitten or injured my finger. Look at the blood on there." But that was actually because it had been pulled out by a vine. And that gave as an excuse to have the bandage on my finger for the rest of the film. But great adventures, going to places where there's no grass, of course. Grass hadn't evolved when dinosaurs were around, so the location teams are always looking for places like that. We went to the wonderful Fraser Island in Australia. There were wild dingoes there, which we saw. You could go to a lovely cliff and look down and see sharks. We did lots of filming in the Red Sea for sea monsters. That was a perfect place to do that. Had to dodge Egyptian military police and things like that, but that was great fun for us. And had some great adventures in Tenerife. That's a wonderful place with the volcanic Mount Teide. It's a perfect place for dinosaurs, these big lava covered slopes. And that was where we actually flew a microlight. So we were flying a microlight and I was turning around and imagining I was being followed by reptiles with a 40-foot wingspan. And I actually believed it. I was so excited. I was shouting at the top of my voice. I could imagine that there was these big pterodactyls flying behind me. And also other wonderful lizards there. There's still lizards that are alive today in Tenerife, and they found a giant one there. It's a very rare lizard. There's only about 100 of them left, and we went to see that on our days off. I love all of the dinosaurs that I met in the programs, but I do have a couple of favourites. One of them, Protoceratops. They were called the sheep of the Cretaceous by paleontologists, and I ran through a big nesting colony, and lizards like this, crocodilians, they're the closest living relatives to the dinosaurs. They can see in colour, so what we used a red flag, and I ran through the colony like a matador, attracting a bull, and that distracted the Protoceratops so I could run through the nesting colony. They've got a very powerful beak, and they could, presumably broken somebody's leg with that beak, so it was good fun pretending I was running through, wending my way through this big nesting colony of dinosaurs. And of course, everyone loves the big predators, and I met 3 of them in the programs. Giganotosaurus, which is a big Argentinian dinosaur, and that fed on the largest dinosaur that ever lived, Argentinosaurus, and that weighed up to 100 tons. So just imagine a carnivore that could eat a dinosaur as big as that. Here's some other guests. These are some baby boa constrictors, these wonderful chestnut markings on the tail, and I know a lot about these. But making the programs, I learned a lot about dinosaurs. And the Walking with Dinosaurs team, they found the most up-to-date paleontological evidence. And this creature, this Therizinosaurus with these giant claws, it is in fact a vegetarian. Great big pot belly, a great fermentation chamber. Takes in lots of leaves, need to digest the cellulose and get the nutrients from the leaves. And they do that by having this big, great vat of stomach acids. And they actually use these claws either for display or maybe for frightening off bigger predators that are after them. So this was a real mystery, and it was great fun for me actually resolving it during the program. And it must be the oddest dinosaur ever known, Therizinosaurus.